Hi, everyone. Good morning from New York. I'm Dr. Dennis Melendez with Cientifico Latino. I'm the program director. And this is how to navigate your first year of graduate school. This is the final webinar of our GSMI 2025 program. Um, it is public. So hello to those of you, anyone in the audience that may not be part of the GSMI. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to write them in the webinar chat at any time. But the structure of this will be that there'll be four questions for our panelists that they'll each have a chance to answer. Maybe 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes each question. And at the end, we'll leave it open to the floor to begin sourcing questions from the attendees. So, and if there are many, many questions along the way, we can try to answer some of them in the chat typed in so that we can just make sure that we get to as many questions as possible. But we're going to try to hold them to for the last 15 minutes. Um, okay, so let me introduce our wonderful panelists. Okay, so Julianna Gerold is a first-year PhD student in integrative neuroscience in the Department of Psychology at Stony Brook University under the mentorship of Dr. Duran Kindly. She earned her Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology from Boston College and previously conducted clinical research at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. Her research examines the cognitive and neural mechanisms underlying vulnerability to financial exploitation via behavioral tasks and MRI. Patty is a PhD student in the Molecular, Cellular, and Integrative Physiology program at UCLA, where she studied neuroscience. Originally from Ecuador, she trained in evolutionary biology and marine ecology, studying population genetics and humpback whale behavior before transitioning into neuroscience. Her research interests focus on animal sensory systems from a neuroscience perspective, particularly the mechanisms shaping neural function, including synaptic transmission and neuroplasticity. Beyond science, Patty is committed to mentorship, teaching, and community engagement. She enjoys working with undergraduate students and supporting others as they explore careers in science. In her free time, she likes reading, painting, and swimming. In the future, Patty hopes to establish her own research lab in Ecuador to advance scientific knowledge and create opportunities for students from underserved communities to pursue careers in science. Last but not least, Shirley de la Cruz is a PhD student in counseling psychology at UC Santa Barbara's Javits Graduate School. She transferred to UCLA and received her BA in psychology with a minor in Central American Studies in 2023. Following her graduation, she primarily served as a research coordinator for an NIMH-funded clinical trial and various community-based participatory research projects with UCLA's Semmel's Department of Psychiatry. Presently, Shirley is interested in culturally relevant interventions, community-based participatory research, and mixed methods to highlight lived experiences and understand the healing of marginalized communities of color. Beyond research, Shirley enjoys supporting community organizations in her hometown, South Central Los Angeles, making nostalgic playlists and spending time in green spaces with friends. So I will now give the floor to our panelists to maybe speak a little bit about themselves and give some background before we get into our questions. So how about we begin with Shirley?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. As Dennis introduced me, my name is Shirley. I'm a first year counseling psychology PhD student here at UCSB. Yeah, I guess to describe a little bit of my research interests, as also like Dennis mentioned, I'm interested in like culturally relevant mental health interventions and healing, and specifically decolonized modes of healing or like non-Western modes of healing. And yeah, so that's just a little bit about me and my research. I'll pass it off to Juliana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Dennis. I'm Juliana. Again, I'm a first year integrative neuroscience PhD student at Stony Brook University within the Department of Psychology. So, my research broadly focuses on human-centered neuroscience with societal impact. So, I work on finding the cognitive and neural roots of financial exploitation vulnerability in young adults, so ages 18 to 24. and older adults ages 16 and up, and I do behavioral task and fMRI, and I also do, as of a recent line of work that was finally reintroduced from the National Institute of Health Mass Grant Freeze. I evaluate the efficacy of novel trauma interventions for PTSD for refugee populations overseas via fMRI here and implementation there.
Hi everyone, my name is Patricia, or just Patty. So I am a first year MCIP student at UCLA, and for my research, I would say that right now I'm doing neuroscience at the very subcellular level, so understanding how neurons communicate with each other, synaptic vesicle mechanisms. But my background is very different, so I guess that in the future I want to merge both fields. So to me, that will be looking at how animals use their sensory systems to navigate their world from a neuroscience perspective.
Thank you all. So now that we've gotten to know you a little bit, we can get into our first question. And I will post the question in the chat just so everyone can stay with us as we move. So question number one is, how did you go about choosing your research laboratory or research topic? Is it okay to hit the ground running with projects that are already conceptualized, or is it better to try to propose something new? And we can give it to Julianna first.
Hello, hello. So at Stony Brook University, within the psych department, the neuro PhD is direct admit. So you've identified your advisor going in. So that helps students firm up their research topic because ideally you'll want some degree of research fit with your advisor. I was personally interested in things that could inform policy academically, that I could investigate via neuroimaging methods, because in addition to my background in psychology, my several post-bac research years were in biomedical engineering. So I wanted something where I could integrate my undergraduate experience and then post-bac research skills that I had gained in a graduate setting. So I think a lot of it comes to advisor fit. So, finding an advisor who is interested in studying the topics that you want to study via the methods that you want to do it with. Of course, there's a little bit of give and take. Maybe there's like a slight difference in methodology, like diffusion versus functional MRI for my neuroimaging people in the audience. I don't know. Um, but I think it is possible to either hit the ground running or propose something new. There's not a wrong answer necessarily broadly, but it all involves communication and conversation with your advisor or maybe your program coordinator for those of you who are rotating in and out. I think there's a way to do both. One of the projects that I'm working on is one that I went in with. So the financial exploitation project was something that I had gone in having some interest and some background in. But the PTSD sort of intervention randomized controlled trial that I'm working on, that was entirely the brainchild of myself, my advisor, and a clinical psychiatrist he met on vacation, who is now one of our close collaborators. So I would say be open to either one, but make sure that you are not left disappointed or, for lack of a better, I guess, not left out to dry, but I think that anything is possible with careful consideration and communication with your advisor, knowing where both of your priorities lie.
Thank you. Very, very well put. How about Patty?
I did do rotations, and I would say that I came in 100% sure of my path of what I wanted to do. So I had talked to what I thought was my dream PI long before applying. So I treated my first rotations as fun explorations. I like to learn new things just out of curiosity. But halfway through, my interests changed. So I realized that I wanted to take a different approach to neuroscience. So I had to get strategic very fast, and I ended up splitting my last rotation between two labs to make sure that I found the right fit. So I guess that my advice would be to be intentional. So don't assume that you're gonna be the same person right now that you're gonna be in December or November. And don't assume that your interests are not gonna change. And so, just to prepare for the people who are doing rotations, just to plan them in a strategic way as well. And as for projects, I think that it's a standard to start with the PI's existing ideas. But as you get comfortable, don't be afraid of mm, asking your own questions. And for example, like during one-on-one meetings and mentors, I think that they also love seeing that critical thinking. And it doesn't have to be anything formal, just if it's a genuine question or curiosity that you have, it's okay that you ask, and that can lead to a change of directions or to a new project.
A lot of good points there. Thank you. And Shirley.
Yeah, of course. I guess for me, for counseling psychology, it was also direct admit. So I had like my advisor, and I was in her lab. So for me, I guess, to like get to like my research topic, it was more like building off of her ideas. And while I know like some of my peers in my cohort like already had like a selection of ideas from like their advisors, like they like carried that onto their own projects. I try to like in a way I guess build off of my advisor's work on like resistance with like communities of color. And I guess to give more context, like my topic is more around like Central American communities. And so because her research was looking at like Black women communities, I decided to like still pursue the concept of resistance just with like a different population. So I guess in a way, I guess my approach was more like kind of like building off of her ideas too. But I like what other people shared as well. Like once you get more comfortable, like you could create your own research questions and stuff like that too. But yeah, I guess in a way I was able to like propose something that like kind of meshed our interests. So I feel like that's also like a cool approach.
Awesome. So let's move into our second question. This one is, how did you develop a working relationship with your supervisor and the lab? What were the community building activities you participated in within and outside of your department? So we can begin with Patty.
Yeah, so before rotating, I asked PIs about their mentorship style, and I went from there to see if our values and approaches are aligned. So I think that here it's important to mention that you have to know what works for you, what makes you thrive, what are your expectations, values, etc. So I think that once you know that, it's easier to establish a working relationship with your PI or any other mentor. And I also try to always encourage clear and direct communication. And so when something doesn't work for me, whether it is related to research goals or something more personal in our relationship, I always try to communicate it, of course, being always kind and respectful, but to communicate it. And I think that it also helps PIs because they get to know what you need and what works for you, so that also is helpful for them, and they know exactly what to expect from you. And so during your rotations, don't be afraid of speaking up, of asking questions, setting boundaries. And I think that's very healthy, and that would also, I guess, tell you a lot about your PI. So if they are listening, if they validate you, so you know that you're in a safe space. But if you are speaking up and they are impatient, then that will be a red flag. And as for community building, I always try to participate in this events hosted by Amiga, which is a group of grad students within the biosciences programs. And so I always try to attend those. And outside of my department, there is always the Graduate Student Association, which I think that's the same for many schools. And that also hosts events, and it's nice just to meet people outside of my specific lab or cohort.
Shirley?
Yeah, I guess for me, for my first quarter, I think with my advisor, it was a lot of like conversations about like the expectations she had of me. I guess in terms of like my milestones and things like that. And I feel like that was really helpful, to understand like kind of like my own timeline and how to like organize myself and also just like mentally prepare myself for what's to come in grad school. So yeah, I feel like that was really helpful. And in terms of community building, I feel like my lab was a little like unique in terms of like the different labs I saw I guess in my department because we actually had like lab dinners every week my first quarter and it was so cute. I feel like that really helped me I don't know integrate I guess into like the lab and also just like the program. So I really appreciated that. And like with my cohort, I feel like they also were very intentional on like trying to like meet up like once a month, every quarter, and we still trying to do that. So I feel like it's been like really helpful to try to like, keep those connections or like build those connections, especially like since I just started this program as a first year. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I can say about that.
You. And Juliana.
I'd first like to definitely affirm what Shirley and Patty said about even just in the pre-application and the application phase, and right when you start setting expectations with your advisor, knowing what they expect from you and sort of what you expect from the graduate experience, like progress-wise, your first year, those are both incredibly important. Getting the ball rolling as early as possible with benchmarks, just so you know what to plan for and work for, because as we know in a PhD program, work you're presenting in August might have been collected the August prior. So really getting the ball rolling early with your PI is incredibly useful. But yes, I would say before I started my PhD, I exchanged some emails with my PI over the summer about getting things started. No one has to do this. I would say in retrospect, definitely enjoy your final summer pre-PhD, perhaps a little bit more than I did, but I'm grateful that I got the ball rolling early nonetheless. And then my PI is definitely very hands-off, which is a mentorship style that I appreciated coming from a hospital environment working exclusively with physician investigators, neurosurgeons who are maybe a little bit hands-off with their research mentees just by the virtue of their job. So that's something that I work well in and sought out going in. So finding out exactly what your PI or rotation advisor, so on and so forth's mentor style is, I think is really, really mission critical to your success. Like for example, if I was someone who really wanted a hands-on mentor with very, very frequent meetings, I don't know if I would be doing as well in my lab as I am now. And then working relationships with hands-off supervisors. Something that I do, if anyone else is going into a mentorship situation where a little bit more independent work is prioritized, is setting benchmark deadlines going in advance that your PI approves. So I went in and I proposed to my advisor, here's where I think that this handful of things should be done by prior to the deadline of my first year project. And he went, yeah, sure, just turn them into me by then. And honestly, it worked really well for me. If you are someone else who likes the structure of a self-set deadline while working with an independent mentor, I highly recommend that. And then community building activities. So my PI only has two grad students because he has a handful of other responsibilities at the university. Um, if there are any sort of extracurricular style activities, I would recommend that. I joined the Stony Brook Student Union for graduate students. I do a lot of community organizing with them. And then, in addition, one of the offices at the university that governs my fellowship has a lot of master students who are pre-PhD inclined, so I do a lot of mini mentorship sessions with them. I get a lot of gratification from helping other people in their PhD dreams. So finding not just volunteering opportunities, but community opportunities that speak to you, especially if you are in a smaller graduate lab where it's maybe just your advisor and one person who's home writing their dissertation all the time. I think is a really excellent way to find friendship and really like flex your mentorship muscle if that's something that you're interested in.
Thank you. And I just want to take a moment to mention, I realized I believe I said to write the questions into the webinar chat in the beginning. There's a Q&A panel that is where the questions will go into preferably. So I need anyone in the audience that may have some questions, please write it into the Q&A window rather than the webinar chat. All right. Moving on to our next question. This is going to be, I think, a big one. How are you able to balance your workload, your well-being, and your finances during your first year of grad school? I know there's a lot of worry about finances going around. So let's begin with Shirley.
Okay, yeah. I feel like this is something I'm still trying to figure out. But I will say in terms of like well-being, I feel like I've gotten a little closer into like compartmentalizing the different parts of myself, I guess, as a grad student. I guess in just like um, I guess self-reflecting and like just reaffirming myself like a person outside of this graduate program, right? So like while I have like a lot of like expectations and like deadlines and things like that, I feel like I still try to like on my spare time, go for a walk or like, see my friends, FaceTime my friends. I moved from home, like it's a long distance friendship now, navigating all that. And so thankfully, like this area, Santa Barbara, is so like, naturey. So it's perfect to just like, walk to the beach 10 minutes away or like go on a hike. So it's been like really nice to, I guess, connect in that way. And I feel like that has really helped me during my first year. And just like having conversations with other people in my cohort about like, starting this program together. I feel like that's also been really helpful. Yeah, that's what I would say for those.
3 minute walk to the beach sounds lovely. Okay. All right, Juliana.
So I definitely feel like I have to work very hard on my financial well-being as someone who A is from a low income background and B, my dissertation research topic is the neuroscience behind financial vulnerability. So I really feel like I have to put my money where my mouth is, I suppose. And a lot of my participants are low SES and struggling, so I helped develop a resource package for my participants. So how to access your local food bank, how to access even I work with a lot of undergraduates because my other cohort is 18 to 25. So how to access all of the local universities in the Long Island areas, student-only food banks, student support mini grants, things like that. So being aware that graduate school is often a time of financial stress is a really excellent first step to take. And then the second step would be navigating, whether it be like someone in your class, your university ombudsman, so on and so forth, what financial resources or material related support resources are available to your students. It might be a little bit harder to find them community-wise, especially if you live in a much more suburban area. But a lot of universities are very understanding about students' financial situations, particularly graduate students. So, reaching out to whoever your designated university official is for student support. Again, it's usually your ombudsman. If it's not them, they can direct you out for what resources are available to students who are struggling financially. And then I personally, as a non-traditional student, worked for several years prior to my PhD. I understand the people that are going to their PhD, unless they are my fellow non-traditional background students, might not have savings, but I think it's useful to rely on savings if you have them, but I understand that not many people are pushing 30 and going into grad school like I am, and might not have that. But again, reaching out to classmates and even your mentor, if there's someone you feel comfortable reaching out with about what resources are available to you, I would recommend strongly. And then balancing workload and well-being. I feel like graduate students and even PhD inclined individuals are more inclined toward a culture of overwork. And again, acknowledging that I think is a very important first step to addressing it. So balancing workload, even if it's just Juliana, I am going to get at least 7 hours of sleep tonight. I have like having hard cutoffs is sometimes really good for me. I'm someone who goes, ah, I'll just analyze one more set of patient data and then I'll go to bed and then I blink and then the sun is coming up on the back end and I hear the birds and I go, oh no. So having very hard cutoffs is useful if you also have a working style like this. And then well-being. I am living in the suburbs for the first time ever. I've also moved away from my friends for the first time ever. So finding ways to connect with your community virtually is incredibly useful. So I try and FaceTime a friend from home at least once a week. And that's really useful. Again, it's a good way to prioritize work-life balance as well. So that's 1 hour out of my week where I'm not like working at the same time and I'm able to connect with my friends, hear how they're doing, and having that community, even though it is hard to take time for me to go all the way to back to Boston for a long weekend, is still really, really important. Just that reminder, that face-to-face or screen-to-screen reminder that you still have people in your corner that are supportive of you really is very important to me. And then well-being wise, I understand this goes against the financial prioritization and really saving where you can of graduate school, but I got a gym membership. I used to have one from work, but now I'm not at that job. I invested in a gym membership, and honestly, it's been a pretty big game changer just like trying to get in physical movement several times a week. This is also a good way to break up that work-life balance. I mean, I can't be working on my laptop while I'm lifting at the Y, so that's a nice separation of academic work and personal well-being. And I promise it's very, very helpful. I'm definitely someone that's super grumpy. I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym. I'm tired. I'm grouchy. I have so much work to do. And then I work out and I feel better. And I go, why did no one tell me this before? They did. But highly recommend if it is something that's feasible, making expenditures that behoove your well-being.
Good. And lastly, Patty.
I think that to balance everything, I'm very mindful about having a structure. So at the beginning of each rotation, I work on a roadmap where I include my goals, my responsibilities, classes. So this allows me to like break big goals or milestones into daily tasks and daily or weekly tasks. So every Friday, I review what I did that week and then I plan for the next week. So this structure has allowed me to um, use my time more efficiently and be productive. So I think that that's also why my PIs have always respected my boundaries. And for me, I know that's very personal, but for me, that having that structure has also allowed me to have plenty of time to do everything, whether it is lab work or classes or social life and well-being and exercising. But if things come to a point where I need to prioritize, I always prioritize my well-being because for me that's not negotiable. But I understand that that's very personal and it can change. It varies from person to person. But I do want to mention that I took several years off after my undergrad, and so I did research for those years. So that's when I learned how to manage all of this. And it takes time to learn that. I think that at the beginning, for people who are going to grad school straight from undergrad, I think it might take some time to learn what things work for you. But I'm just mentioning this so you take things easy and don't put too much pressure on yourselves. But I would highly encourage to have a clear structure and planning things ahead and just reviewing what you're doing and your goals and how to get to those goals. And about the finances, I would say that our stipend at least is livable, but you have to be also kind of like a researcher with your money too. And what worked for me is that well, if you cannot move to the city earlier than starting grad school, I would highly encourage using Google Maps to walk the neighborhood. And check online grocery prices, know how much yogurt costs, our bus costs, or parking, gas. So I think that planning that budget ahead of time removes the financial jump scare in the first month.
Thank you. So we would now have our final question. Looking back, what do you wish you had done in your first year of graduate school? What was the largest difficulty you faced, and how would you recommend handling it? And we can start off with Juliana, please.
First, I wish I had slept more. I think it is possible to achieve the success that you want to have while still maintaining your wellness. I also understand that sometimes when you are caught up in the drive for success, especially for people who are maybe on an academic career path, the publish or perish mentality can maybe lead us to lose track of our wellness in favor of our academic success. I do strongly believe that it is possible to maintain wellness while working towards your academic goals and dreams. And I do think there comes to a point where it yields like diminishing returns if you are pushing yourself so hard that you can't even work at your full capacity. So I do wish that I had prioritized my personal wellness a little bit more than my academic output, because I do think there is a balance that it takes time to find. Because it is important to push yourself academically. It's not great to push yourself beyond your bounds of personal wellness. And I would say that is the largest difficulty that I faced. And then, I mean, I guess the second largest would also be moving away from my friends for the first time. So I lived in Boston for 8 years prior to starting my PhD in suburban New York. Um, so recommend handling it. Prioritizing even remote connections, just like weekly FaceTimes with friends or even bi-weekly. One of my friends and I, we do snail mail where I'll like put little stickers on a dumb little piece of paper and mail it. And then it's like the delayed gratification too. Sometimes I'll like have a hard day at work. I'll come home and my friend will have sent me a postcard from the Freedom Trail, which we both lived on. So it's like very silly, like little silly funny things. And then personal wellness, recommend handling that. I would say conscious reminders, hard cutoffs, and then anything you can do to even like steal 5 minutes away to prioritize your wellness. Sometimes it'll take me like 10 minutes to process a data set if everyone's working on the supercomputer at the same time. So I get up, I walk around the building, I come back. So finding moments where you can steal away a little bit of joy and relaxation for yourself is a really great way to escalate up into finding maybe like an hour every other day to go to the gym. So starting small for wellness is really, really useful if you are someone who wants to prioritize that, but thinks maybe like meditation for however many hours or no screens after a certain time is a little bit too daunting. So, starting small and working your way up to wellness, I think, is something that worked for me.
Yeah, you can never forget that baby steps are really important, right? Not hardly do we accomplish our goals in one very big leap. Shirley,
Yeah, so I don't know if there's anything I could have done to prepare for the first year of grad school. Um, but maybe looking back, I kind of want to echo what Juliana said. Like, I think until now, like my last quarter here, I've gotten into like a decent routine of like, I'm gonna sleep at 11 p.m. latest. Like, like the hard cutoffs. I really like that. And just like, yeah, trying to, I guess, build that discipline. Like the sleep hygiene, that's very important. Um, and so yeah, I feel like looking back, obviously like giving myself grace, like it's my first time, like I'm a first gen like student, like I've never done something like this before. But I feel like maybe just trying to build those habits like early on is always a good idea. Um, and then in terms of like the largest difficulty, I faced, I will say, like imposter phenomenon is like super common. So I feel like that's definitely something I face, like even in my cohort. I feel like I was the only like, Latina woman and also just like the only person who like came from a low income community. So that was like definitely something that was like that would just come up subtly, like people are talking about their lives and then I'd be like, oh, I never did that, I didn't have that growing up. So that's just something like that happened. And something like maybe you can't really prevent either, but I would say like the way I have been handling it is more like talking with people like in my lab who also have like similar backgrounds as me. And also like leaning on my friends in my hometown, some of them aren't even in grad school too. So it's like just like having friends outside of like my field has been helpful too. So I feel like just having conversations with them about stuff like that's not grad school or not, you know, I guess, yeah, like school related, academic related, and also like just relating to them, has been great. So yeah, I feel like it's not really preventable, but that was like one of the things, that I guess I faced so far. But yeah, I feel like I've been able to like, manage that a little.
Feel like we're scaring everyone with the sleep thing. Is it really that hard to sleep? Yeah, you should definitely prioritize that, everyone in the audience. Thank you, Shirley. Patty.
Um, just let me read the question again. Yeah. Okay. So my biggest hurdle was realizing um, that I wanted a lab that I hadn't planned for when my rotations were almost up, and I wish I hadn't assumed that what I wanted was set on stone. And the way I solved it was talking to everyone. So I reached out to the program director, my previous mentors, and also communities like Cientifico Latino, which was very helpful. And here I would just like to give a shout out to Rob because he was very kind in listening and giving advice. And this helped me definitely to approach my rotation plans in a way that worked for everyone. So my lesson was to use the resources in your program or in your school in general. People are there to help you navigate the politics of things, unspoken rules, and so on. So I would say don't be shy or afraid of asking for help because usually getting a second opinion just leads to a better strategy on how to solve things.
Thank you. Um, so it looks like we have plenty of time here. A couple of open questions, but please, to our attendees, feel free to just write in, um, what anything you have on your mind. We're here to help you and give you, help you feel as prepared as possible for this coming year. So the first question, they said it's for Patty, but it's open to everyone. If you have an opinion on you know on the question, so they're going to an MS now, and they're interested in direct admit, and would be applying to PhD in December 27. So they saying that they're interested in reaching out to PIs now to establish a relationship, and they want to know how you approached PIs far in advance of the application cycle, even though the norm is to email the PIs the fall before you submit applications.
Yeah, so I started so first in instead of looking for universities or programs, I was looking for the labs that I was interested in, whether that is in, I don't know, Harvard or New Jersey Institute of Technology, whatever, that didn't matter to me. So I was just focused on labs and PIs. And from there, I do understand that they get dozens of emails a week. So I try to be very mindful about being very concise and very straightforward. So my emails used to be very short. I would send my CV already for them to have everything in hand. So I would just tell them what I'm interested in very briefly, what I wanted to do very briefly, my background, and that was it. So I think that looking back, when I was starting just to send emails, when I thought that I was gonna apply to grad school, which was ages ago, but I remember that those first emails used to be very long and no one ever replied to those. But last year I was very mindful about that, so I think that that helped a lot. And some people might reply, some people might not. Um, I remember that in the when they asked me if I wanted to talk more, I tried to be very proactive. Actually, from the very first email, so just suggesting if they wanted to talk over Zoom, I would give my available times already, so they would have to think less, sort of speaking. So I think that for them, that you help them out in that way, like giving everything, all the info from you that they need, that helps them a lot.
You. Did anyone else want to mention something, or should we move on?
One very quick thing about emailing PIs in advance, especially for direct admit programs, sometimes PIs might not know the funding situation that allows them to take on students until much closer to the application cycle. I started emailing as early as like May, June, prior to the application cycle, because by then, like PIs will have, if they will have taken a student, they'll have done it by then for the cycle prior, and they might have a better idea of their funding situation. So it is great to email in advance, but sometimes if it's too far in advance, maybe like the middle of the cycle prior, they might go, well, I really don't know if I can take a student. Like, ask me again later. So usually, and sometimes people will have it on the department website, like Dr. Julianna Gerold will know if she can take a graduate student pending availability of funding. Decisions will be out in July. So I would say if you want to email really early, there is perhaps such a thing as too early for concrete decisions. But if you are wanting to get your name out there and then emailing again to fully formally inquire if they have the money and the capacity for a new grad student, like two emails could be possible as well. PIs get emails all the time.
Yeah, I guess I can just add like what I did. I emailed like around August, so the summer before the fall of like submitting my application. And I guess just like to share the expectations of like when you email, like sometimes they won't respond. And sometimes they'll respond with a generic email they send to everyone saying like, I usually don't respond to emails or like this is the generic email I usually send to everyone. So like please refer to all your questions here or something. And sometimes the email will include like the projects they're working on or like any like common questions they'll get. But yeah, sometimes they won't respond. So I just want to like say that too. And that's fine. That's normal. But yeah.
Thank you. I see that Juliana is typing in an answer. Someone asked about getting a copy of the financial resource packet that she had mentioned earlier. So we'll move on to the next question. But anyone who's interested in that packet, or Juliana's answer at least, you'll be able to find it within the Q&A chat. So Lizette Hernandez says, how do you go about making new friends as an adult graduate student in a new city or in your program / outside of your program? For anyone that wants to answer, just make it friends. How do you do that? You're
Oh,
going to a whole new place. You're in a brand new
yeah.
place, new kid
Mhm.
on the block, but you're an adult now. So it's a little different. It's not like a playground, right? There you go and meet people.
I will say I
Yeah.
was super lucky. My office mate is like my grad school best friend. if you are someone like we're two to an office each at my university for the graduate students. I mean, we also have our lab spaces, but we get our own offices as well for office hours. So, I mean, the first point of contact is the people that you'll see every day. I understand if people have some trepidation about that because, oh, like we've got 5 long years together. What if I mess it up? But at the same time, what if you succeed? Like my office mate is we met like the week before classes, and she is like my closest friend on campus. And I feel very fortunate to have some really wonderful people in my network. So not just people in your cohort, but especially if you are very dissimilar to your admitted cohort. I'm a little bit older than some of my cohort mates. So, but I was fortunate that a couple people in cohorts ahead of me were also non-traditional, a little bit older as well. Not that I'm like older, but some of them are 22 and I am decidedly close to 30. So there's a little bit of a generational gap going on there. But finding people that you mesh with is hard, of course, but knowing like that you can reach outside of your cohort is equally valuable. And then especially if you live in a more urban area, sometimes there are adult extracurriculars. Like one of my cohort mates commutes from the city and he like New York City, and he is in like a queer men's recreational orchestra because what his like other degree is a BFA in flute performance, so he does that. I know there's like volo sports for any of us who are athletically inclined, not me. But if you're living in a larger area, if you can find the time, and I think that's also like a striking a balance of prioritizing wellness and academic success. A lot of cities do have adult extracurriculars for those of us who are high achievers who want to make friends. So it is possible, I promise.
Um, yeah, I think very similar to what Juliana said. I would say though that maybe at first you might put some pressure on yourself to be friends with the people you are meeting right away. That means people in your lab and your cohort. And it's nice to mingle and be kind and social, but um, also don't expect that everyone is gonna stay in your life in the long term. And this is very personal, but I always try to meet people out of not only outside my cohort in my life, but also outside of school. I always like to have people out of that bubble, sort of speaking. But that's very personal because I have some preferences that I have. So that works for me. And I do think, I guess, that it's harder to make friends as you get older, but that also means that you are more intentional about the people that you're meeting and the people that you want to have in life. But just take things easy. Don't stress about that. And I guess that things just come. And something that I was told last year that I still think of that is that you should just trust your future selves or trust that all the decisions that you're making right now are good for your future selves, or just trust that.
Okay. Shirley, it looks like you had wanted to say something, but I want to say that in the interest of time, I would say let's just do one or two answers per question now, and let's try to limit the answers to 45 to 60 seconds, just so we could try to knock a couple of these out. All right, so next one here, let's say, what are some of the unspoken rules slash hidden curriculum things you've encountered so far in your program? Things, I guess, things that kind of surprised you going into your first year that everyone kind of knows, like, you should know this.
This might be me not being able to, like, this might have been me forgetting to ask a question, but some subspecialties within my department are known to take a far longer time than I would like in order to graduate. So some PhDs are, in and out in 4 to 5 years. Some people and some advisors, it's pretty normal to take upwards of like 6, 7, which especially for I'm a little bit more industry inclined. I am someone who would prefer to maybe take less time. I know some people are staying an extra year to get a little bit more publications under their belt. I'm a little bit more industry inclined, so that's not necessarily a track that I would mesh with. But I think it's important to even ask around not just your PI, because some PIs consider that to be a very touchy subject, years that students take to graduate, because that could be a sign, like a detraction on their productivity or the student's productivity, so on and so forth. Some PIs might go, oh yeah, it's totally normal to take like 7 years. And it might be for that lab, but knowing years to graduation by speaking to students as opposed to the PI first, I think is useful, especially if you are someone who is committed to getting in and out in a certain amount of time, while still being aware that, like, life happens. I'll also be throwing some things in the chat for things that are a little bit more me specific, just in the sake of time so people can have their questions answered, if that's okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say that while one panelist is speaking, also please feel free to type in any answers to the open questions. So let's see which question do we do. So for those that took gap years, oh, Shirley's writing an answer for that one, so I'll give a different question. For rotational based programs, when is it expected to contact advisors? And is this different for an advisor you contacted before your application? I guess Patty's the only one that did rotations.
Wait, sorry. I was trying to read that question again because I missed it. What did you say?
Yeah. So for rotation programs, when is it expected to contact advisors that you're interested in rotating with?
That's a good question. I don't know if there was an expectation because I contacted them quite early. So I remember I talked to them. This was way too early. This was just me. I contacted them maybe at least 6 months ago, but that was too much. So I know that for most of people in my cohort, some of them contact PIs just a month or two prior studying grad school, and some people didn't contact any of them at all. So I guess that for rotations, that's more, that's not set a stone. So that is more chill and more relaxed. So I would say that if there are just a few labs in that program that you're interested in, then maybe talk to them earlier than usual. But if there are many labs that you're interested in, then you know that you are gonna have plenty options. So I wouldn't stress too much about that. But I guess that maybe in average a month or two before studying grad school.
So maybe this one kind of can continue down this path of when you're rotating. So how do you navigate rotations and classes in your first month? Is there something you think helped to make you feel less overwhelmed?
So I guess that one thing that I never thought of at the beginning is that doing rotations is great, but to me, what didn't work is that I felt I didn't have a clear routine, like something like an environment where I was already settled in. I knew exactly what I was going to do. But I would mention this again that having a very clear and very specific plan for each week and each day, that helped me a lot. And so I would encourage that people, I would try to encourage people doing that. just planning every week. And like, like you think of a big goal and milestone, and then you take back and you ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do to achieve that goal? What daily things do I need to do? So I think that that helped a lot. And I guess that between rotations and classes, usually PIs are very understanding that you are taking classes that you need to study, that you have assignments, that you have exams. So always talking about that very openly helps not only you, but also to them so they know what exactly to expect from you and what research goals they can assign to you, let's say.
We have a question that I think is good for Shirley or Juliana too. It says that they're also interested in counseling psychology and they're finishing their bachelor's in psychology this semester. How do you use your post-bac year to strengthen your grad school applications? Were there things you wish you had done differently before applying?
Yeah, I did take, I guess technically 2 years, two growth or gap years, if you will, before applying to the program. I would say, I guess I really was involved in a lot of projects as the research coordinator at the Department of Psychiatry at UCLA. And thankfully, the PIs I was working with were like very open to like me supporting on like their publications and things like that. And so I think it's very like maybe lab or PI dependent, whether like they'd like be open to you like leading a project or poster or supporting on their publications. But thankfully, the mentors or femtors I was able to build with them, like they really helped me, I guess, try to strengthen my application with that and like trying to like add relevant things to like my CV. So yeah, I feel like that was something I did. I guess what was the other thing? Some things you wish you'd done differently. I guess just to quickly answer. Oh my God, we're on the last minute.
All
I guess
right.
like before, yeah. I guess I wish I got involved in research before because I actually, yeah, I got involved like May of the year I was graduating, in undergrad. So I think that's why I also wanted to take like 2 years off to try to like, get more experience for myself and like see if research is something I really want to do. But yeah, I guess I would say like maybe try dipping your toes in different like research methods you might be interested in early on, and that way you kind of have like an idea like what you like. But yeah.
Thank you. So we do have just two questions left, and Julianne is answering one of them. So I will ask this last one, and whoever would like, please offer your thoughts. So you know the situation changes, right, when you move when you're a prospective student to now being a matriculating student, and so the questions maybe could change too that you're going to be asking your program managers. Um, what are there any questions do you think that you need to be asking as a matriculating student now?
I
I would,
I would
oh, sorry.
oh and it's just a quick thing. So I moved from Connecticut to California for UCLA, and something that it definitely was mentioned during interviews and during the visit at UCLA, but we did not go in depth is about moving out of state and like establishing this California residency. And so that means to that you have deadlines for getting your ID, your driver's license, or registering your vehicle and things like that. And there are just a number of days that you can be outside of state. So I think that is like 40 something days that you can like you can actually be outside of California during the first year. So those are things that I didn't know beforehand and that I ended up doing, but just because I don't know, whatever luck or something, but it's something that I didn't know beforehand. And I wish I had known that so I could better plan my summer vacations and things like that. But that's very specific and very particular for people who would be thinking of applying to grad school in California and moving out of state.
Another thing for moving out of state, set up mail forwarding before you leave. As soon as your new lease is set up and starts, set up mail forwarding, especially for those of us who worked and need our W-2s. Don't do what I did. Set up your mail forwarding as soon as you have the new address and the lease starts, because then you'll get your W-2s on time and you can file your taxes.
Yeah, I definitely didn't do that either. But it's not also the end of the world. I remember that I asked them, I emailed them, and they sent it back. So if that doesn't work, it's okay if you just email them and ask them to send you the W-2 form.
And then if you can move before the semester starts, I wasn't able to just because of like work, health insurance, things like that. If you can give yourself a little bit of buffer time prior to the start of the semester, if it's feasible only, I would recommend it. You can maybe walk around your area of living, identify like grocery stores, coffee shops you like. I only had like 4 days before my PhD started, so like amidst furious unpacking, I like went to the DMV and re-garaged my car and changed my license. But if you can give yourself some buffer time in your new area of living to explore it and like get groceries and all the things you probably have forgotten amidst your like hundreds of miles of difference move, highly recommend it.
Thank you so much to our panelists for all the insight that you've offered, and thank you to our attendees for staying up with us. I hope that you found this to be a very helpful webinar. So I'm going to end the recording now and wish you all a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.